And the problem with leadership is that so many people think that leadership equals no fun, right? There's this, Jocko says discipline equals freedom and all this type of stuff. Man, within leadership, there's fun, there's joy, there's love, there's honor, there's discipline, there's so many things. God, the king of everything, says Shehianu, Vekiemanu, Vegiano, Lazman Azeh.
It kind of sounds a little Italian. Just saying amen. Welcome back to another show of the Cody Cottle Show. Today, get ready to be unlocked. Get ready to unlock the leader inside of you. Get ready to learn how the good and the bad can mold you into the leader that God has called you to be. Today, I have a guest who is a great friend of mine, an incredible individual, a man that I look up to in so many ways, the way that you live your life. He's the founder and the owner of Yigal Adato. He does help. He is the expert in unlocking leaders and helping. Here's the thing. Everything boils down to leadership. And if you don't have good leaders in the world, then we're not going to shift culture. We're not going to change culture. We're not going to have good families. We're not going to have good businesses. So Yigal Adato, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, brother.
It's an honor, man.
It's not just an honor to be on your podcast. It's an honor to be here because we've become such good friends over time and just calling each other, supporting each other. So I love the fact that you invited me and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. Like in this show, there's no rules. We're just going to go wherever with it. And I think that that's so important. One of the things I love is you are one of the guys I call recently a lot. I've been going through my own stuff and the conversations we have, sometimes I feel selfish. I'm like, dude, this is so good. Like I have such great friends and they pour so much into me and I pour so much into them. Can we podcast this? Just this little, you don't need, can we share this with the world? So my hope today is we get to bring a little bit of that. And I know we will. I'm expectant for it. But before we do, I want to throw you off a little bit. Is that all right? We're going to have some fun?
You can try.
All right, let's go, baby. Mr. Yigal Adato, if you had to delete all but 3 apps from your smartphone, which ones would you keep?
I would keep the camera.
Why?
Because I can take pictures of my family.
Selfies?
Friend. Yeah, that's right. Selfie. No, I take pictures of my girls. I've got 3 daughters and we do the funnest stuff together. So I want to, relive those memories.
Yeah.
I would keep the calendar app just to know where I'm going, like when that is.
Yeah.
And then there's a app that I use called Safaria, which has every Jewish text available to man. They've put it into this one app. So I would keep that.
Man, that was powerful. You answered that really well.
Thank you.
Let's go. All right. So if you could meet any living person for dinner, who would you pick and why?
Any living person. I've got like 15 people going on in my head.
It's a first one.
It's like going round and round. I'm trying to be like, stop,
It's just fun. No right or wrong answer.
I think so. First and foremost, I think living person. I think I'd want to meet, man, you're throwing me off, dude.
Told you I would.
I know it's a good thing though, because what's crazy is that I've recently not thought about that so much as opposed to thinking about somebody who's passed.
Wow.
And so I'm not going to lie to you. It's just not coming to mind.
That's okay.
And I think the reason is because the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking about like my ancestors, the past so much. That's what's fresh in my mind. But somebody living, I think I'd want to meet The Rock, actually.
Let's go.
Right?
Me too.
That just came out. The positivity, the work ethic, like he beat up his body for years for entertainment to show people what he can do. Came from nothing. Yeah, I think I'd want to meet The Rock.
Let's go. Someone call The Rock. Let's invite him on the show.
The Rock, I want to meet you, man.
Yigal wants to meet you. Next question's a little bit deeper. And it's just, what do you value most in life personally?
I value honor. You talked about, I'm a friend that you call. And I believe that between us, there's honor. With my wife, there's honor. With my kids, there's honor. Towards God, there's honor. Yep. And so I really value honor because within honor, you have the subcategory of integrity and love and devotion. And there's so much behind it that I really value honor. And honor is something that you have difficult conversations with people. So if you have to tell somebody something, it's very rough. That's honoring them.
Dude, that's so good. Thank you for sharing. And earlier, when I asked you that question that stumped you a little bit, I think it's really key. Like, I don't believe that there's coincidences. There's directions we can take the show and the conversation based on the things that happen throughout the conversation. And I know that you are an expert in unlocking the leader. And I know beforehand when I talked to you, talked about how the good and the bad help mold together to create that. And can you speak into that for us and maybe even some things going on in your life? So let's kind of start there. And if you want to start with the bad and some of the struggles, I like vulnerability. And let's talk how those two things are able to form good leaders.
So I think that, today honoring my father, it would have been his 71st birthday. My father passed away from Parkinson's and dementia a couple of years ago. And I learned the good and the bad from my father. My father was an extremely kind person. He connected with people. He cared about people. He donated money. He gave money away. I mean, people would get loans from my father and he would just be like, don't worry about it. Don't pay me back. And we're talking like $10,000, $15,000. And I had people come to me afterward talking about my father, saying like, you have no idea what your father did for me. And so, but what I also saw from my father was somebody who is stressed out, down, lots of anguish. He worked 14 hours a day. I rarely got to see him. He didn't come to my sports games. We didn't travel together. Somebody asked me yesterday, hey, what's a great memory that you have with your father? Like, did you play sports together? I said, I never tossed a ball around with my dad, And so from my father, I learned the good and the bad. What I mean by the bad is what I don't want, who I don't want to be, what I don't want to cause, what I don't want to do. And at first I was very angry with him because he didn't do that stuff. And I'll never forget the moment he was in our house, in hospice, passing away. I forgave him and I asked for forgiveness. And because I realized now that was such an incredible lesson. Wow. That it taught me how to be a leader, teach leadership, and then keep unlocking the leader. When you say unlock the leader, I just want to be very, very clear. It doesn't mean that I unlock you once and it's done, and magical certification, award, you're good. My belief is that there's things that happen that get locked up. Yeah. You go through life and relationship, kids, health, wealth, you get locked up. And so you have to know how to unlock that stuff. And so if you don't go through the bad and the good, then that key is just a shiny golden key that doesn't fit in. But if you go through everything, you put it together, then you can use that key and say, okay, what do I want and what don't I want? And then unlock that portion of it.
That's so good, man. And I love that because all these areas of our life as we go, so things are happening externally, things are happening internally, and we are getting locked up. At one season of our life, we're on top of the world, and another season, the world's on top of us. Your marriage, your business, your personal friendships with your friends. And it's this constant journey of having to get unlocked and learn from that. Even when you unlock one area in that, another area can get locked. So, you talked about learning from your father, both the good and the bad, and those lessons. What can you pass along to the audience in their journey, in their story that they're going through? How do they learn from the good and the bad? Let's start there, the past. Let's move there to present, to future, to unlocking leadership in them in those areas of their life.
So first and foremost, I think the most important thing is to know that leadership isn't about perfection. You told me to be transparent, porn addiction, 7 months into my marriage, almost got divorced. Health, not being present. I mean, I kind of copied the thing that I saw in my life. Yeah. And so leadership isn't about perfection. It's not being about the most disciplined Navy SEAL out there, the highest level CEO where you only see the good. And today with social media, you only see the good sometimes. And it's not about that. It's about being imperfect and getting out of the imperfection to be able to unlock that section of you, to be able to continue on with honor, right? So I go back to that word honor. I'll give you something again. There was a time where, and I think this is the first time I've ever shared this. I talked about porn addiction. I had a website shut me down. Be like, hey, you were too vulgar and crass. So we're something happened. Yeah. And they're like, you're out. And I was like, how low did I have to go? Right. There was a moment where I was working 8 to 6:30 and I was talking about being present. And then Angel, our friend, it was months ago and we're on the phone. And he says, dude, it's 5:45. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm on my way home. He's like, what happened to leadership? What happened to being present? And I was like, dang, you're right. So in life, leadership isn't about perfection. Every single day, there's a battle to lead. Wow. And it's not about winning the day or losing the day. It's seeing the day, the good and the bad, and then making a better choice tomorrow.
Wow. Dude, that was so good. Leadership's about seeing today the good and the bad, and then making a better choice tomorrow. Yeah. That's so powerful, man. And I just think about how much better the world would be if people really arose to that and took ownership and leadership over their areas of their life. And there are those days we all have where we reflect and we're like, man, I really was not a good leader today. I didn't show up. I could have gone home at 3:30 for my wife and my children, but I didn't. So people get stuck, I feel like, locked up. Let's call it that. And they stay in that place. There's so many people that get locked up, and it's like they know they're locked up. Yet I don't know if they don't want to change it or they just don't know how. What would you speak to the individual that's caught like the CDs on repeat, playing the same song over and over and over again until something breaks, the marriage fails, the kids hate them, their business relationships go to crap, their money stops coming in, their friends don't like them anymore because they didn't unlock the problems they were having and they kept playing the same track over and over again. What do you say to that person?
So it's happened to me. I want to be very honest and transparent, right? As a leadership expert, coach, whatever, it does happen to me. Yeah. It happened to me some weeks ago. We were talking on the phone and I'm like, dude, I'm not doing okay. Something's going on with me. And then the other day I came up with this phrase that I told you. I said, well, creating a movement takes moving.
Yeah.
And I would say first and foremost to those people, just move either emotionally or just get off your butt and go walk.
Yeah.
Like change the scenario somehow. Because what happens is we get so comfortable doing what we do that locking up causes like a depression of some sorts and you have a limiting belief and you just want to sit in your bed. You don't want to do anything crazy, right? Yeah. So we're also afraid, there's also like fear of failure and fear of looking bad and fear of not doing what we're supposed to do. And there's so many things that go into it. But for me, it's moving. Just move. Go for a walk. Go on a hike. Read a different book. Watch something different. Change the channel quickly so that you can start taking in Spanish we call it pasos, taking the steps to be able to make a different move and take a different path. Now, I want to be very clear that this happens to every leader.
Yeah. And multiple times.
Multiple. There's no like perfect day, perfect thing, perfect year, perfect month. That doesn't happen. Sometimes you wake up. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I went through a time where something was going on with business, with marriage at the same time. 2 of my girls had the stomach flu. I didn't sleep for 4 days. There's no way I'm going to wake up and be like gung-ho, like, I am a leader today. Like, let's go. Rock and roll, man.
Yeah.
So
unless you're the Rock.
Exactly. Unless you're the Rock, right? But that's the thing is we see so many of these people on this pedestal, then something bad happens. You're like, well, what happened? It's because we're not sharing transparently of what's going on.
Yeah.
So for me, it's that. Just move, do something differently, and know that, and I learned this very recently, that everything starts with your thoughts.
Yeah.
Thoughts create emotions, emotions create action. If you're consistently thinking negative, then your emotions will be negative, your actions will be negative.
That's so good, man. And it made me think of a few things because and transparently, me and Yigal both have been going through our own funks in life. And it's so interesting when they come too, right? Like you could be at the height of your success in business and be going through such an internal fight in there. You can also be at the low where everything around you is going wrong. Cash flow is low. Relationships aren't good. And it's navigating that. And I remember when we were talking, I was like, man, like emotion can't exist when you're in motion. And I remember thinking of public speaking. I remember the first time I got asked to speak in front of a big group, the very first time I actually blackface choked up and it was in school and I went to my desk and I couldn't do it. And I like cried at my desk, like in my arms. It was the worst thing ever. And I went home and told myself that'll never happen again. But there was emotions that surfaced. There was fear, there was insecurity, there was doubt, there was anxiety. And then I remember when I stepped on a big stage, I remember I was against this wall. There was 2 speakers before me. And I was feeling all of the emotions. I was like looking at the exit doors. I'm like, how do I strategically get out of doing this, And it came my time to go and the microphone was handed to me. And I remember how scared I was. But I remember when I took the steps and I started speaking with the microphone that the emotions I was feeling all of a sudden went away. Once I started moving, once I started talking, once I started getting into it, everything that I had felt beforehand was no longer there. And I was now in a flow. And I mean, I feel like in our lives, and you can riff on this too, that I get these emotional funks and moods and whatever, man, in these states. And like you said, I just have to change the channel. And sometimes it's so simple. It's going on a walk with my dog Zeus, getting outside, getting sunshine to hit me, moving, throwing on a podcast, anything, going to take action, going to hang out with a friend, calling my friend Yigal, going to the gym, anything to get my body and my emotions back in motion.
Let's go back to when you were a kid and you were crying in your arms in the classroom and you went home. I don't know if you can kind of like relive this, but did you go home and scream out, this is never going to happen to me? Or was it like on the inside, you said, this is not going to happen again? Inside. So you gave yourself clarity on the inside. You're like, this is not going to happen again.
And I looked in the mirror at the reflection.
Yeah.
And I was so embarrassed and so ashamed in so many ways. And I remember like looking at myself like I was having a conversation like, Cody, this will never, ever, ever happen to us again. I don't care what we have to do. We will never feel the way we felt today.
Yeah. So you gave yourself clarity, like full internal clarity. This will never happen again. Then you fast forward to that story where you looked at the exit sign, right? And what happened there was you gave yourself courage. I'm going to take the microphone and I'm going to do this. And now knowing you, how you speak on stage, there's a commitment to speaking and transforming lives.
I love your C's. You always do this: clarity, courage, commitment.
Cody Cottle, right? And so it's the only way I can remember this stuff. But if you think about it, you woke yourself up to something. You woke yourself up to like, this is never going to happen again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this. You were committed to it. You were courageous about it. And that's what leadership is. So leadership isn't on the high level. We look at, people who run these immense companies with 5,000 people or presidents of the United States. And we're like, that's what leadership is all about. I need to lead the whole nation and all this type of stuff. It's not. It's more granular like that. It's like, how do you lead internally? First inside, because everything that you do touches somebody else. So there's something called leader contagion. And leader contagion is where you are contagious the way you show up in a room. If I came here and you had no energy, this podcast would have been super low energy, but you're Cody Cottle. There's energy all around, right? But at the same time, it's how you show up. And so if you're showing up and it's a negative state, it's negative emotion, it's negative energy, that's what you give off. And when you realize that in leadership, the way I show up tonight when I get to my house after this podcast affects and impacts my daughters and my wife for a long time. How can I do that to them?
Wow.
And so we go back to that word honor. If I honor the people in my life, I have to show up as a leader first with myself. Forget team and I talk about culture and unlock the team and all that type of, forget that stuff. The most important thing first is you.
Yeah.
And listen, it took me therapy, it took me coaching, courses, mentors, friends. If you sit there doing it by yourself, it's very, very tough.
Yeah.
Right? It took me, I'm Jewish, but I'm Jewish. And so like prayer and going to synagogue for me, and it takes a lot, but you have to be willing to do that work. And this isn't so that you can go be a Navy SEAL. It's not so you can go be the president of the United States. It's just so you can wake up every day and say, I honor myself and those around me.
That's so good. And just think of like, what's the opposite of honor, right? It's dishonoring. And it's like, how we show up, the contagion, I just can't get that out of my mind, man. Like the influence we have on the atmospheres, the environments, the relationships, the loved ones, the friends of the spaces that we occupy. I started thinking as you were saying that of a thermostat. And when you walk in a room, do you turn the temperature up in the room? Like, do you contribute to it that going up or to it going down? And it's almost like interesting if you really were to evaluate every room you walk in, every conversation having, your conversation tonight with your wife, your conversation with your girls, your conversation with your business partners, your employees, are you bringing that, elevating that up as a leader, or are you bringing it down?
Yeah. Now let's go back to what we talked about, the funk. How about the conversations with you, right? Are you elevating yourself or are you bringing yourself down? Because so many people, they're scared of the responsibility of leading other people.
Yeah.
And so it stops them from doing that. But this is different because you just need to lead yourself.
Well, I would say you can't truly lead others truly if you can't lead yourself.
Correct. And, to dive deeper into this, for me, like I look at my marriage, I look at my kids, and I look at my father who passed away at 69. My father was diagnosed with Parkinson's and dementia at 59 years old.
Wow.
He was young. 6 years later, the rabbi comes to him and says, Nassim, what do you want to do? He goes, I wanted to do so much, but I can't even walk anymore. I can barely talk. And so he was such a great leader in his business, right? But in his personal life, there was turmoil with my mom, and he wasn't present, all that type of stuff, that the moment he wanted to make a change, dude, he couldn't walk. My father made a lot of money. And a lot of that money went to caregivers and doctors and surgeries and therapies. And so I see it as like, and this didn't hit me, dude, until like I buried my father. Once I buried my father, I'm like, what am I doing? 69 years old, it's not that far away.
Yeah.
For me, you're young, dude. But like it's not that far away. And either I can live in this negative thought loop and not lead myself and not lead my family and not enjoy life and not have fun, or I can have fun. And the problem with leadership is that so many people think that leadership equals no fun, right? There's this, Jocko says discipline equals freedom. And all this type of stuff. Man, within leadership, there's fun, there's joy, there's love, there's honor, there's discipline, there's so many things that because the world talks about leadership being like firm and like marching and like sergeant, yes, that we forget about leading with love and heart and joy.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. It's almost like the rigidness and the structure of society and the weight of responsibility has took away the true authenticity of what leadership really is and what great leaders are. And like, I think about that and I'm like, you know, I'm guilty of that. As you're saying that, I'm like, I'm one of those guys who took on responsibility, called myself a leader. Others called me a leader. And I forgot the fun. I forgot the joy. I forgot the adventure. And I found myself in this place recently, Yigal, where I'm like, I do all these things. I lead in a business. I have 4 employees. I lead in ministry. I have a men's team of, we're going to have over 40 guys going to emerge. I'm the captain of that team. I was leading the 2nd largest volunteer team at the busiest campus for Awaken Church. And it felt good to be entrusted with that responsibility. The pat on the back, man, I'm a leader. I've been entrusted with this. I steward this. I'm driven. I make it happen. I'm dependable, so people promote me. And I was like, but then in the midst of all of that, I found myself miserable. Yeah. And the truth is, and you know this because I've talked to you, behind closed doors, I lost the joy of being a leader. And it created resentment. It said, man, I'm doing all of these things for everyone else, and I'm so unhappy doing it. When did that happen? It was, I'm living the life I've always wanted to live. Always. I mean, the thought of even being a leader at one point in my life was the most intimidating thing in the world. And now I'm entrusted and I am leading people, but how can I ever truly lead them if they only knew late at night how I actually feel? And then the resentment, and then the doubt, and then the fear, and then the insecurity, and then the self-talk. And next thing you know, I'm in this depressive funk, and I'm calling you. And I'm like, bro, I ain't drank in 2 years, and I'm thinking about having a drink, help. You know, and it's like, that to me is probably the most locked up I've ever felt, because on the outside, everyone's like, Cody, you're such a great guy. They pat me on the back. You're charismatic. You lead. But why don't I feel like that on the inside?
So you can't lead with exhaustion. It's really hard. Yeah. And I always say leading with baggage is misleading. And when I talk about clarity, I'm not talking about like writing your business plan on a piece of paper. Yeah. I'm talking about like getting out and moving everything away and getting full clarity emotionally, mentally, physically, so that you can move forward. I went through the same thing. Yeah. And check this out. I took it to like a level even higher. Rough time with my wife, rough time in the business. I was a president of the synagogue. And of course, what did I do? I went to the youth movement. I was like, I want to come help, right? Put my foot in there. Then I went to the school, my daughter's school. And I'm like, I want to come help. And I just like put every limb into everywhere because there was a lack of transparency with myself to say, Yigal, stop. Just get clear. You're exhausted. You're tired. It's okay to say no and cancel it all and say, I'm really sorry. I cannot lead this way. Cancel it. Get clarity on who you are, what you want, getting out, cleaning your car, your office, your house, throwing stuff away. Dude, for 2 weeks, you made fun of me as we walked in here because I switched my podcast room to my office. Yeah. And if you would have seen the mess I had for a week, like my assistant had to close the door because she has like some OCD. And it was just like a mess everywhere. But what did I do? I came in 4 bags of garbage out of my office. 4 bags of garbage. It's been sitting there for 2 years. I cleared up.
Wow.
Right?
You decluttered it.
I decluttered. I decluttered the space, my mind, my emotions. I had a very tough conversation with my wife. So I decluttered that. That's getting clarity in order to lead, right? Yeah. And so the hardest part about that is doing it because we're so nice. We don't want
to let people down. We like the acceptance. We like the validation.
But we do. Like when you lead with exhaustion, you're letting people down whether you know it or not.
Yeah. Because you can't show up 100%.
Yeah. They're like, where's Cody at? What happened? He didn't make the call. He didn't show up, or he showed up and like, what was wrong with him? Like remember you posted something on Instagram and I called you. I'm like, bro, you okay? Yeah. You're like, yeah. I said, I saw a video of you speaking and you didn't look okay. And what did you tell me?
It's like, hey, you're right. I'm actually not.
And you said everybody else gave me props. They said it was so incredible, but I'm not okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I actually want to take a moment because this is good you brought this up. There was a time in my life where I dreamed of traveling the world and speaking and pouring into people. And here I am being paid to go in and speak at a high-level event with highly successful people. I'm a good speaker, so I do my thing. I went back to my room and self-isolated, like after. I just was like, I wanted to go home and curl up in a ball and like cry. And I was miserable. And I'm like, God, why? I always wanted this. And now that I'm here, why am I so unhappy? But what you're saying is the truth. It's not that that was the wrong thing. I'm where I'm supposed to be. But what I did is I over-leveraged myself into so many things, to the point of exhaustion, to the point of burnout, to the point of not taking care of myself, to where my mental health even was out of whack.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes a big toll. I mean, you think about anything in leadership, business, family, fatherhood, parenthood, whatever that is. And if you're exhausted, like I'm exhausted. If 2 nights ago, one of my daughters threw up, the other woke up with a bad dream, and the other got angry because her sister wasn't in the room with her. It was so weird. And so I woke up the next day. I'm like, I can't. The only thing I did was I told all my Zoom calls, I said, I'll jump on a call with you, but it's got to be on the phone because I'm going to go for a walk. And I walked for 2 hours, had the same calls, did the same stuff, right? Still did the business I had to do, but it wasn't like seeing my face and got it done. Because leadership is also about knowing you. Yeah. And another thing is, why aren't we honest with each other? Like we've built a relationship where we can be really real.
Yeah, like really real.
Like extremely real.
Yeah.
And there's no judgment. There's no, I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to, what happened? We went to go throw axes.
Yeah.
And I told you, I said, I don't want you to tell me what to do. I just want you to listen to me.
Yeah.
Because that's all I needed. And so many times in life, we don't know what we want or need, and we don't say that. It happened to me. It took me 10 years of therapy to communicate. Seriously.
Yeah.
I couldn't speak because my family had this thing of like, we're Adatos and, everything, all the bad stuff goes under the rug and make sure that people think that you're doing amazing all the time. So it taught me to not be able to share my emotions.
Yeah. And leaders carry such a mantle of the way, like they feel such a weight of responsibility of the way they show up, of the way others see them, of the people that rely on you. I know for me, like for so long until I've had brothers like you that can really dig me, because that's hard. Like there's like, man, I remember like joining, I would build these friendships and join these masterminds, but then you start doing business with some of the guys in there, which is a natural thing and it's beautiful and it's amazing. And then it's all of a sudden like, man, I'm really struggling with this thing, but I don't want to go share it in here because these guys are my clients. And what if they think I'm not stable and they don't have trust and then this whole thing of being a leader, and I can't now share it with this group or this person or this for whatever story you tell yourself. Then you find yourself self-isolated. As a leader, everybody's looking to you, and oftentimes it's easy to fake it if you're a good leader. Everybody thinks you're good, but behind the scenes you're not. And then what a lot of leaders do is they don't understand the long game. The champion's mindset of I'm going to, George Apicicea talks about this all the time, our mutual friend, and how champions have to play the long game. And they have to not self-sabotage. And I think some of the greatest leaders in the world have self-sabotaged and self-destructed themselves and then trying to pick up the pieces and the crumbles versus self-identifying where they're at, slowing down, removing responsibilities like you were saying, and saying, hey, I need to take care of me because I want to show up and be a better leader.
Yeah. I think that what just came to mind for me was leadership isn't just about stability, it's about security. And what that means for me is that if you are out there making every move thinking about, is it going to be stable? Are people going to think about me? Am I going to look good or not? Bad, good guy, not guy, no more Mr. Nice Guy, right? I had Robert Glover on one of my client calls on Wednesday, but it's about like security. Like, how am I going to feel good about myself?
Yeah.
It's about my inner confidence. It's about my inner self and how I portray me as opposed to always being, dude, you're going to crash. It happened to me so many times. I left the pawn shop. I had a chain of pawn shops.
Yeah.
I sold them. I'm going to go be this coach. Leadership. It's going to be amazing. 2 years depressed because I was sitting behind a screen. Imagine this. I owned brick and mortar stores. I had hundreds of people working for me, hundreds of people walking in every single day. And then all of a sudden I'm staring at a screen all day, every day. I went insane. I was depressed. Right? And so if I didn't know it, like it hit me after. I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I started connecting and, you know, joining groups and doing stuff because I started to know me. And when you know who you are and what you want, and you're so secure about that, right? It's not stability, it's about security. Yeah. When you're secure in who you are and what you want, that's leadership. Stability, BS. You're going to fumble. You're going to throw a pass that's intercepted. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to lose money. You're going to go bankrupt. Something's going to happen.
Right.
But if you're secure with who you are, that's how you can step forward every single day and lead another step.
And you're on a firm foundation.
Yeah.
When you know who you are and you have that sense of security, you're a rock.
Yeah.
No matter what storm's coming out, you're planted. You're firm through that.
I had a client a couple of years ago, and the business was not going well. And he goes, Yigal, I don't want to share this with my team. I said, you know what? You're going to share this with you. You're going to walk into the team meeting and say, we are taking on water. The business is taking on water, but I promise you I'm going to captain the ship, and we're going to make it through. I just need your help.
Wow.
6 months later, business turned around. The culture got together. People, hey boss, what do you need? What can I do? How do we do this? And if he lied, it wouldn't have happened the same. And the same thing has happened in our relationships. If I come to you, like, if you ask me, hey, how's everything going? I'm like, I'm cool, man. Everything's good. You can't help me. I can't help you. But if you call me and you say, hey man, I'm thinking about taking a drink. I'm like, don't you dare. Like, do I need to hang out with you? What do we got to do? We went and we had root beers, right? Like, fine, let's have some root beers, dude. Yeah. But like, if you can't share that, then how can you get help?
Yeah, dude, I just think about, man, that's so powerful. How many, because we're all leaders in different ways.
Yeah.
And how many of us aren't being honest and transparent and vulnerable about where we're at with those we love and have around us? And it kind of goes into, I had a conversation earlier today about expectations too. And it's like, as a leader, if you're not managing expectations and communicating properly, how can you ever expect somebody to understand where you're at? Like, your wife might be super frustrated with how you're showing up in your marriage right now, but she might have no clue what you're going through on the inside. Yeah. Have you sat down and had that conversation and said, babe, like, I love you and I'm in this, but this is like what I'm going through? And I've been hiding it, I've been bottling it up, and this is how I'm feeling. But rather than do that, I'd like to come to you because I want to fight for this. I know the way I'm making you feel. I know the lack I'm showing up for our family right now. Then it becomes like a team. Like Tony and Elisa were in here earlier, the De Lorenzos, and they talked about how like you're a team. And it's like then, and it's so cool, man, because like we have more teams on our side than we think. You and your wife are a team. You can have issues, but at the end of the day, when communication's good, now it's, as they always say, it's not like you versus her, it's you and her versus the problem. And she can come alongside you and help you. You can come alongside her. Brothers, you're going through this in your business or whatever. Cool. Now that you've shared that with me, I can come alongside you. I can be a teammate, bro. I can be like the phone of the friend on Deal or No Deal or whatever, right?
100%. I mean, there was a time where I told my wife, and I'll never forget this. I said, I love you, but I can't stand you. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, I love you. Like, I'm here to fight for this marriage, but I can't stand you.
Wow. That's deep.
And she looked at me. She's like, that's the thing I've always been afraid for you to tell me. I'm like, but if I didn't, we wouldn't move forward from here. There would just be resentment, anger, and then I would have done something stupid. It would have ended our girls. Like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And so there are times where you have to have very serious conversations, courageous conversations, 2 more C's for you. And, but that's leadership.
Yeah.
It's not how many employees that you lead or how big your company is. And you can lead from any position, anywhere, as long as you can open your mouth, say what needs to be said, say it in a loving manner so that when we sit down, both of us are better after the conversation. Yeah. That's leadership. It's honoring that. How do I have honor if I can't be honest with you? Honor, honesty, like the same root word, right?
You're such a wordsmith.
And so, but for me, that's the thing. And it took me a lot of work to do that. And so when you say, like, how do you unlock the leader? The first thing I always tell people is like, what do you want? What do you need to say? That's it. Let's start there. So many leadership.
What do you want and what do you need to say?
That's it.
It's the first way to unlocking the leader.
Yeah.
And in communication with others.
Yeah. What do you want? What do you want from this life, in this life that you don't have at the moment? And what do you need to say to somebody that you, Like, let's get this going. Let's have the conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Let's get this off your chest. Don't throw up on people. I don't agree with that either. My grandfather, may rest in peace, he was brilliant, lived to 94 years old, but he would just throw up on you, right? I don't think that's the right way either. But for me, when you can open your mouth and say what's on your mind, and for the other person, if you're listening, to be able to honor them by truly hearing what they have to say and not being defensive, not taking out the ninja swords and ready to attack and slit throats, right? And not thinking while they're speaking, that's when you can actually lead together. You talked about marriage. That's when you lead together. That's when you and I can lead. We can talk about business because you know everything I'm going through.
Yeah.
How much money I made last month, what my problems are, what happened, my mindset.
Yeah.
Right? When I'm battling, you know what's going on at home. Yeah. Like that way you can put the whole picture together and then ask me questions. If I don't give you the whole picture and you ask me questions, it'll lead me down the wrong path sometimes.
Yeah, that's so good. And I feel like I should say also be very intentional about who those people are.
For sure.
Right? Because you don't go tell everybody that. Correct. But you know, and I remember when I heard a speaker share how we have 6 pallbearers when we die, but who are your 6 in real life? So to each person out there, like, who are your 6 in real life? Who are you going to that knows your finances, your personal life, your family life, your marriage, your struggles, your addictions? And I think brotherhood, and for women, you guys have sisterhood. I think there's different elements, right? Like you got your wife. That's the biggest. Well, God, you have your relationship with God, then you have your wife, but then brotherhood. Like, it's so good. Like, iron sharpens iron, and like, we're there for one another, and we get to sharpen one another. And then with women, they have that same thing. So I think that's powerful, man.
But I also think it exists. I think it's very seldom that it exists to the depth that it needs to exist.
It's usually surface level.
Exactly. We have conversations about, you know, things that are happening at work and things that are going on, but like to dive deep into what's actually happening, that takes courage.
And we need more of this. You know, these right here are taking so much away from the depth of relationship between human beings. Yeah. And I feel like more and more, man, I just see it. And it's like, how often, when's the last time you sat down with someone and just had a 3-4 hour conversation, you know, and dug deep and got to know what's going on and weren't so next thing. Let's shoot a video. Let's do this. Let's post how great our time looks on Instagram. Instead of just sitting down and be like, hey, man, like, how are you actually doing?
Yeah. Another one is with yourself. So many times we grab the phone and we're on Instagram. You know, in Judaism, there's Yom Kippur, which is 25-hour fast. No electronics. Just sit, pray the whole day with yourself, introspect with the community. And for me, that's a big day because I don't touch my phone. I don't touch electricity. And like, it's with me. And within the prayers, there's a whole section that basically says like, it's like 27 sins that like man commits, right? I've lied, I've stolen, I've cheated, like all this stuff. And as you're saying it, you're like, nah, whatever. And you're like, no, hold up a second. Yeah, I did. I did that. And I did that. I did that. But it's okay. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
Right? Let me forgive myself. That's the biggest, like, man, talking about my father today, one of the biggest reliefs with my father was when he was lying on his deathbed. And I forgave him, right? And I asked for forgiveness and he like squeezed my hand. It relieved so much in me. Like, you have no idea. Wow. There was a moment where for so many years I was angry at him, but when you forgive yourself, you can lead. When you forgive others, you can lead. If you carry that burden with you everywhere, you can't. That's the baggage I was talking about. You know? And so another thing I think is when we talk about clarity is forgive yourself. I've made the stupidest mistakes. I've hurt people. I've done things. I've lost money. I've like all that list in that Jewish prayer, I've done them to an extent, not as bad, right?
Right.
But when you can forgive yourself, that's what I talk about, like the good, the bad, and the next day better decision, one by one, step at a time.
Yeah, dude, that's so good. So going into, I feel like we've covered pretty well unlocking the leader inside of yourself. I mean, we could definitely go deeper. But now that, you know, I know you're also an expert at helping unlock teams, organizations, and things like that. For those that are leading, whether it's for-profit, nonprofit, sports team, whatever it may be, what wisdom can you share to unlocking that inside of an organization?
Yeah. So first and foremost, the hardest part of business is people. And you've got to understand that everybody has and comes from different areas, different experiences, and different traumas.
Yeah.
And when you realize that, you can't say, I'm paying you, just do the job. It doesn't exist. Because when you have something that happens, as an owner, I remember when my brother had his baby, for example.
Yeah.
And he was exhausted. They were in the hospital for 10 days. And he'd come to work, and we bought a futon, and he'd sleep there, right? Other people can't do that. They're expected to work that long. So for your team, again, give them clarity. What is it that you want? Because people think like there's osmosis, like you should know what I want. And the second thing is believe in them. People want to be believed in. And when you can give that to somebody, like, I believe in you, they work so much better. And by the way, some people aren't going to fit.
Yeah.
And you should let them go. That's fine. Share them with the competition. Give them the opportunity. Just like a relationship.
Yeah.
Right? I've had girlfriends. I broke up with them. It didn't work out. Same thing you got to do with your team. So for me, it's that. It's engage with them. Be very engaged with them. Have people who engage. Like if you're running 500 people, one of the managers and leaders has to engage.
Yeah.
Care about them. We just walked out of a golf simulator.
Yeah.
Where he said, I built this to have fun, and the team was having fun.
Yeah.
Right? Let's not forget to have fun. Go back to that. How do I bring my team joy and fun?
Yeah. And when you do that and you believe in them, and there's that saying, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And when you're a leader and the employee or whoever's in your organization knows that you really believe in them, you care about them, you create an environment, a culture for them to have fun where they feel appreciated in, they'll run harder and faster for you and your dream and your vision. I mean, at times they'll even be running when you're in your funk, carrying the thing forward.
100%. I'll take it back. We talk about work, but I'll take it back to my daughters. My daughter, Tali, who's 7 years old. She's brilliant because when she sees me down, she says, Papi, can I give you a hug? And I'm like, of course, right? And so people need those hugs. People need to feel connected. And so, like you said, I've been in a funk where my team runs a company. They're like, hey, don't worry about it. We got you, right? Just tell us what you need from us. That's always the question. What do you need from us? And I say, I need 3 days. I need 2 days. I need to think about this. I need time, whatever that is. Because they know that when I come back, let's go.
It's go time.
Right? I'm not always stable. No human stable. But they have security in knowing how I'm going to react afterward.
Yeah. That's so good. And I feel like, how important do you feel getting your employees to buy into your vision is?
So your vision is your vision. I think it's not like you can't just paint a vision and say buy into it.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is like, what's the vision for our company?
Yeah.
Or here it is. Do you agree with it? How do we change it? How do we mold it to make it yours?
Yeah. So I guess that was more the thing, the company, right? Like I know, and I like what you said about the input. You know, me and my team, we put together a 3-year roadmap for Content Daily, and can't believe I didn't do it sooner, but it was a lot of work, right? And I had my vision for how I wanted things to be. And then I have Esther, who's now running operations, and really molded with her vision with that. And it tweaked it, it changed it. Then I went to my team and I got feedback from them, and I asked them their thought, I asked them their insight, and it changed even more. But I saw a byproduct was every employee, every member of the organization was excited about where we're at, where we're going. They know how we're going to get there. They know how they fit in that and what's expected of them, what's required of them. And that's been a game changer since we've done that.
And by the way, in 4 months, they'll forget.
Yeah.
And what you got to do is you got to go back and say, hey, here's that vision. Are we still excited?
That's good.
Do we still love it? Do you still know?
Got to unlock the team.
Do you still know where we fit?
Yeah.
Do you still know where you fit? You still know what you need to do? If not, let's go back and make a change. Let's go over this again. Because as people, Cody, you and I are sitting here. My phone's out there, right? And there's probably emails and text messages happening and things that happened to me today. And things are going on. Out of here, I'm going to go to a dinner. There's 25 people in my house tonight.
Yeah.
Like, life happens. And I'm not going to remember the vision at the moment. And so we have to be reminded of what we want. I tell my wife I love her every day, not to remind her that I love her, right? But to honor her in that. Yeah. And if I just stopped, she'd be like, wait a second. You okay? You haven't said I love you in a while. And it's the same thing in your company. I appreciate you. Thank you. It's the vision, the mission, our values. Do we all still fit in? It's still working on.
So powerful. As we come to a wrap with this, Yigal, do you just feel anything on your heart that hasn't been said yet that you'd like to share?
I want to say for those listening who might be like, I'm not a leader, I don't know if I can do this, you can. And you might lead one person that makes such a massive difference in the world. And that's all that's needed to create what's my mission, to build a legion of leaders so my daughters grow up in a better world. And it's about leading one person, and that's you. That's it. You don't need to lead a team. You don't have to be on the church captain. You just have to introspect with yourself and say, am I happy? Am I joyful? What do I need to do? What do I need to say to be okay? So that when you go out in the world, it makes a shift within you. So the way that you say hi makes a difference in people. The way you spend your money makes a difference in people. Whatever it is that you do makes a difference.
Yeah.
Because for me, if somebody smiles at me, it makes a difference in my life. So let's just smile more, man.
Let's go. So good. And what's next for you?
I'm on that mission to build a leadership development company that's very different. I believe that leadership development is broken. We're only teaching external leadership and not internal.
Yeah.
We're expecting people to have great meetings, delegate without working on themselves, without unlocking who they truly are and their potential.
Yeah.
And so that's my goal. I also have a goal of sponsoring 100 children in the Philippines, girls, because I'm surrounded by, I've got 3 girls. My team are female, and I have a soft spot for little girls who don't have access to medical, dental, food. And so that's my goal this year, is to sponsor 100 of those kids so they can break the cycle of poverty.
How can we help you achieve that goal?
If you want to be a part of it, just reach out to me, and with pleasure, I'll make it happen.
That's awesome. And where do we reach out to you at?
Yeah, so I'm at Yigal Adato on all social, the only at Yigal Adato. Or if you can't remember my name, just go to unlocktheleader.com.
Unlocktheleader.com. And I just want to take a moment. You're doing some really cool things for the leadership space, and you have some upcoming events and different things like that. Can you just, for a quick second, kind of tell us more about that? Because I know you're my friend, you're my brother, and you're not loud enough about what you're doing. So I've given you the microphone. I've invited you to my podcast, and I can tell my audience right now, genuinely, this man right here, I will go anywhere that he goes. And for those that want to unlock the leader, that want to be better business owners, that want to grow your team, this is the guy to do it. How can they get connected with you? How can they do that?
Yeah, so a couple of things coming up. March 13th to the 17th, we have a 5-day challenge where you can taste some of this Unlock the Leader framework. March 21st, we start the Academy, the Accelerator, where we go 8 weeks in depth. May, we have a live event. So if you want live events, we do that as well.
Because this will pass. They'll miss the March one.
Okay.
Because of when the podcast drops.
Gotcha.
May, it'll be available.
Okay. So reach out to me. I do a 2-day event in May where we dive deep into your leadership, into yourself. We unlock all the potential. And it's an incredible time. And I promise that you will become somebody who your team wants, your family needs, and that you love seeing in the mirror to be able to take step by step and lead in this world.
Come on. Well, Yigal, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And for everyone out there watching this, my hope and my belief for you and my expectation is that this show is going to help you unlock the leader that you were called to be in your life. And I want you to think about who in your life is suffering right now because you're not doing the work to unlock the best version of yourself to show up 100% for those people. And as we learned today from Yigal, it starts internally. So guys, go unlock the leader inside of yourself. And as always, make today great.